welcome to our segment on making the move from live chat to messaging. My name is Austin Lacey, and I'm the manager of the chatbot and customer experience automation teams at Zendesk. I'll be sharing details on how to evaluate and form a plan for moving your account from live chat to the new messaging channel. Before we get started, here's a quick summary on what we'll cover in this session. First, we'll touch on the fundamental differences between the live chat and messaging channels. Then, we're going to jump into tactics on how to approach and plan your move to messaging. After that, we'll go over operational considerations you'll want to consider when you make the move to messaging. And finally, we'll dive into some common questions we get about this process. Now, let's dive into our first topic, messaging versus live chat, and how these two channels are different. The number one question we get about chat and messaging is, what's the difference? Let's focus on this by discussing what messaging does that chat does not. First, the big one is that messaging brings automation to the center of every conversation and can help remove the repetitive questions your agents have to answer today. Messaging comes with much more than the article suggestions you get with chat. Messaging gives you simple-to-use tools for building your own custom bot, which will help deliver quick answers and reduce the number of repetitive tasks handled by your agents. You can also scale messaging to other social channels instead of just having a widget available on your website or app. Some additional popular channels for messaging include Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Second, messaging provides a personal touch even at scale. You can use a bot to collect customer data and even surface data from external systems into conversations to give customers personalized, tailored responses without the need for a human each time. And lastly, there's the ongoing nature of the conversation. With messaging, your customers can start a conversation on the web and move it over to email or a social channel without having to worry about starting over again like you would have to on chat when you switch channels. That conversation is also ongoing for agents, which helps them quickly orient themselves to deliver fast, more productive support. On to our next topic, planning your move to messaging. As exciting as messaging might sound, swapping out chat for messaging isn't quite as simple as just enabling it. It requires careful planning and consideration. You're going to be dealing with changes on many fronts, including changes to the agent experience, the customer experience, and your support operations. The good news is that we've already done some of the planning for you on how to roll out messaging that will work for many implementations. We've put together a blueprint you can follow or adapt to your specific needs to help you plan your move. Now there's quite a bit to unpack. We'll give you lots of things you should be thinking about and how to apply these considerations to your use case. Let's get started with the first step in the process, gathering your requirements. A quick note as we dive in, your Zendesk account needs to be on Agent Workspace and have a suite or a support and chat license to even see the option for messaging in your support instance. After you've checked your eligibility, take a moment to see if there are any red flags before investing time and resources into planning the migration. Go over the checklist we put together for you in the Zendesk Help Center. If you answer yes to any question in this checklist, make sure to contact your account representative or Zendesk customer support to help you further evaluate your account. Next, start looking at what messaging can and can't do today. Even though we've added a ton of features and functionality to messaging since we first launched it, there are still some problems messaging doesn't solve for. For example, proactive messaging. Rather than doing a feature-by-feature comparison, it's helpful to think about what problem you're trying to solve for and how it can be accomplished with messaging. For example, the concept of wait times is strongly associated with live chat. Wait times were created in chat to set appropriate expectations with customers. This still needs to happen with messaging, you just don't do it with a queue position. One way of solving this problem with messaging could be to have the bot send a message which advises your customer of typical response times, or to advertise your typical response time in the header of your widget. You'll need to understand how migrating to messaging impacts chat settings from an admin perspective. Things like chat roles won't exist anymore after you move to Agent Workspace. The place you manage the widget also changes. Metrics and reporting move out of the chat activity dashboard and over to Explore. Those are just a few examples. More examples can be found in the Zendesk Help Center. Next, or even in parallel, you'll need to map out the ideal conversational experience. This is where planning intersects with operational considerations, which we'll get to shortly. Take a step back, determine what business problems you want to solve by moving to messaging, prioritize them, and determine the KPIs you'll use as your North Star for measuring success. We'd recommend you complete a process mapping exercise of the ideal customer experience so that you can visualize the workflows that will drive the experience. It all starts with the greeting. Are you going all in with messaging and making it the entry point for all of your conversations? Or is it going to sit alongside other channels like voice and email? How will you manage the customer expectation interactions that are always on? From there, you'll need to start to think about ticket management workflows, routing and escalation, and resolution rules and how they'll work with messaging. You'll have to think about offline scenarios and how ticket assignment ownership may change when moving away from one-time sessions. I'd recommend adopting this one golden rule. Don't get lost trying to over-engineer your conversational workflows. Next, you'll need to look at designing your bot flows. You'll need to create an effective bot strategy to extract the full value automation can bring to your business. Here are a few things to keep in mind. Number 1, set your goals. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, what are you trying to achieve by implementing a bot? Are you trying to deflect common questions, improve CSAT, or boost agent productivity? Number 2, assemble your team. For planning purposes, it's important to determine the right folks to bring in early on when designing your bot experience. This could include working with customer service to identify topics that can be automated, engaging with brand and content strategy to develop a style and language guide for the bot, identifying the team that will manage the bot, and perhaps consulting with your security team if they need to be involved with approvals, especially around data. Number 3, ensure all your resources are in place. Ensure you develop all your tools for governance around managing the bot, especially when you have different people or new employees who will be involved. This can include defining how testing works, identifying technology, and teams impacted by how the bot works, setting rules for using data and systems, or how to use the style guide. Developing these tools ensures your bot will always represent your brand and deliver a consistent experience. Number 4, choose what to automate. Finally, work in advance to identify your top service issues. A good starting point is to look at one-touch tickets your agents see frequently. Ask yourself, what should I automate and what should I not automate because it's super high touch, complex, or business critical? We'll discuss these last 3 items together. You're going to need to think about conducting impact assessments, organizing regular check-ins with impacted teams, and creating a communications plan to inform internal teams and customers about upcoming changes to the way that support will be delivered and what to expect on the day the change goes live. Before migrating, your team must know how moving to messaging will impact their day-to-day tasks. Conducting impact assessment will help to ensure a smooth transition. You'll need to identify and uncover what specifically will be changing for agents, customers, your overall support operations, and even other areas of your business. A small tip which helped us here at Zendesk when we moved off chat and over to messaging was to organize check-ins with your team to learn more about perceived impact and use that time to share out some of the benefits that they'll gain once the change is rolled out. The customer communications plan is probably the most important. Customers are probably used to reaching you in a particular way. If they've been reaching you through chat, then waking up to a new bot-driven self-service experience is going to take some time to get used to. You'll need to re-educate them on what support will and will not look like. Be sure to set appropriate expectations with customers on typical first response and follow-up times. If customers are used to getting an immediate answer, and now you're telling them it's going to take longer, they need to know that. Otherwise, they're going to think something's broken. Now that we've discussed formulating your plan, let's go into operational considerations to make. There's a bit to this piece, but for today, we'll look at the top 3 based on common questions we get. Those are workflows, workforce management and staffing, and last but not least, KPIs and reporting. Some things you'll want to get ahead of are handling ongoing conversations. The widget is always on, so how do you want the support experience to look like inside and outside of your business hours? Triage and escalation. Think about under which conditions you transfer issues from your bot to agents using information it gathers during the initial conversation. When a ticket is escalated, should the follow-up continue through messaging? Or do you want to continue the conversation through another channel that's more appropriate for follow-up? How will customers be notified of an update on a ticket that might come in days later? There are also offline scenarios. There are various situations to take into account which will change how agents manage tickets, such as when your customer is no longer responsive or your agent goes offline. Your customer responds after the ticket is solved or closed, or your customer reaches out outside of business hours. Managing your views. Messaging tickets, like all of the other channels, are managed in views. Some of these offline scenarios will require you to set up some new views to filter between active and idle conversations that go active again and might need reassignment after the agent's end of shift. Workforce management is another heavy-duty topic you're going to need to think about. One aspect is KPIs. There's a relationship between staffing, SLAs, missed chats, CSAT, and operating expenses. Most companies are forced to make a decision on what to prioritize between those. Choose what KPIs are most important and design around them. Think of them as your North Star. Another consideration is normalizing volume. It will take time to learn how to translate and normalize volume from other channels into equivalent messaging volume. You should also anticipate a temporary increase in volume as your customers and agents familiarize themselves with the new experience. And then there's new forecast inputs. You'll have to account for bot deflection rates and removing abandoned conversations. Utilization optimization. The way your tickets are handled will change. Active and idle conversations will change your historical concurrency benchmarks. You'll need to set new workload and productivity expectations to avoid idle time. It's possible you'll need to set some guardrails for handling a max number of conversations at one time, or a max number of inactive conversations as another example. Now, moving on to reporting. Let's look at what you do get with messaging. We've launched real-time reporting for messaging. It lets you monitor the end-user experience in your teams live. For team supervision, you can use the drill down on real-time reporting dashboard to have a quick look at which agents are online and what they are working on. If a messaging conversation is taking longer than expected to solve, supervisors can listen in on the conversation and provide help using internal notes. You can use historical reporting to estimate staffing. Once you have approximately 6 to 8 weeks worth of data, it will help you identify if there are enough agents to handle your customer requests and indicate if reorganizing is required. Trends will help inform whether you need more agents for a certain shift or to handle certain types of queries or customers. You can also use historical reporting to find opportunities to optimize your operations further. And for our last part of this session, let's look at some common questions we get. The first one, will messaging eventually take the place of chat, or will both options always be around? Messaging is the future, and it is where we'll be investing in the next few years. At the moment though, customers have both live chat and messaging until we address any remaining feature parity items that exist between both products today. Our next question, is it possible to route messaging to a certain group of agents after a customer has a question regarding a specific product line or family? Since launch, the ability to route a skill hasn't been supported in messaging, but this has changed. Now you can sign up for our omni-channel routing beta. Alternatively, you can use a data collection form in Flow Builder to collect the product, tag it, and use the tag to route the query to a given agent or team with triggers. Our next question, can you implement messaging but treat it as a live channel? A lot of our customers use messaging as a live channel. One capability of messaging is that the end user experience can be configured to behave like it's session-based from within the messaging admin settings. On the agent side, tickets can be configured to solve out after each session, so to eliminate the asynchronous nature of the conversation. Be aware of certain things that you cannot replicate exactly the same in messaging, such as providing queue wait times, hiding the widget when agents are available. That's it for now. As you venture into your journey of going from live chat to messaging, please visit our Zendesk Help Center for the latest updates and information to help ease your transition.